I ran temp shifts in a hospital badge and access office. I wanted revenge on a nurse who reported me for skimming over time, and my plan was to miskey one access level during her first week, so she'd break a rule on camera and look like a fucking threat. My role gave me the database and the printer, my motive was petty rage, and the logistics were one quiet morning before rounds. I didn't steal meds or money out of a drawer. I stole minutes. I'd forget to clock out. I'd round up. I'd ride the chaos and tell myself the hospital could eat it. She didn't eat it. She emailed payroll like she was scraping mold off a wall. Next day, my supervisor sat me down and read policy at me with that careful voice that says, "We're not firing you. We're just cutting you down." He yanked my overtime approval, made me sign some warning, told me another incident meant security would escort me out. I nodded, apologized, acted humbled, then walked back to my little office and felt my jaw lock for hours. I saw her later in the hall, scrubs crisp, coffee in hand, moving fast, looking straight through me like I was a stain. That look sat in my throat. People think badges are plastic and lanyards. In a hospital, a badge is a yes or no on every door that matters. It decides where you're allowed to be and what cameras can turn into a problem. My role gave me the database, the printer, and a ridiculous amount of trust for a temp. Folks leaned in and said, thanks, like I was protecting patients. Security guys treated me like part of the furniture. Meanwhile, I was sitting there with an open admin screen, a grudge, and nobody checking my hands. When her name hit my onboarding list, my stomach flipped. Same nurse, same unit, first week in our building. The plan snapped into place fast because it wasn't smart, it was petty. I wasn't going to lock her out. Locked out means she complains, someone fixes it, and she stays clean. I needed her to do something that looked bad without her even realizing it. I needed the system to accuse her, not me. In a hospital, the system is always believed first. So I miskeyed one access level. One small change. Not a hack, not anything cool. I set her badge to open a med room she wasn't cleared for. Non-narcotics, not the or, nothing that screams crime. Just a controlled supply room on her floor. A door people follow each other through all day. The kind of door nobody thinks about until compliance drags the footage up and freezes it on a screen. She showed up early for her badge, before rounds, before the hallways filled. She stood at my counter with that polite, tight smile like she was doing me a favor by existing. I printed her badge, laminated it, clipped it, and my hands didn't shake until I hit the permission screen. I could have stopped. I didn't. I saved the wrong access on purpose and handed the badge over like I'd done her kindness. She didn't thank me. She just left. Then I waited. That was the worst part, sitting in that office pretending to work while I kept checking the logs like an addict. I told myself I was monitoring for errors. I was watching for her name. 2 days later, she followed an older nurse into that room because the door just let her. That's it. No siaking, no forcing, no tefti. A green light, a step over the threshold. She touched nothing. She didn't even drift deep into the room. But the system recorded it and the camera saw it. And the audit flagged it because new hires aren't supposed to be there. Compliance doesn't need a crime. It needs a clip, a timestamp, and a policy line to point at. The next morning, my supervisor came in with security behind him. He didn't ask how my day was. He asked if I processed her badge. I said yes, normal onboarding, and I hated how easy the lie slid out. He told me to pull her profile and print the access sheet. I did it, and when the paper came out, I saw my mistake sitting there in black and white, except it wasn't a mistake. It was my intent without a fingerprint. The security guy stared at the sheet, then stared at me, and I felt sweat start under my arms even though the office was cold. Later that day, they pulled me into a little room off security and made me walk through my steps like I was teaching a class. They asked if anyone told me to give her extra access, if I'd ever change a profile without a request, if I understood the policy. I kept my face blank and answered like a robot because emotion is what gets you noticed. They slid a statement across the table and told me to sign it. My hand hovered. If I didn't sign, I looked guilty. If I signed, I was locking myself into the lie. I signed. On the way back to my office, I passed that med room door and heard the reader chirp for someone else, and it sounded like it was laughing at me. My supervisor later chewed me out in private, not because he cared about her, but because a flag breach makes his whole chain look sloppy. He told me I was temporary, like it was a threat. I snapped back that I was doing the workload of 2 people, and he knew it. He leaned close and said if I caused one more problem, he'd make sure my name never got renewed anywhere in the system. I walked out shaking, not from fear of him, but from the stupid reality that he was right. One complaint, one audit, and I'd be the disposable one. That's the part nobody talks about. Hospitals run on disposable people, and I decided I'd rather ruin someone else than be ruined. They called it a serious breach. HR put her in a room and talked at her like she was a hazard. I wasn't in there, but I heard it later in scraps. She begged. She panicked. She swore she didn't force anything. She said she followed someone in and the door went green. They latched onto the word followed like it was a tactic. Tailgating, unauthorized access, patient safety risk. She kept saying she didn't take anything, and they kept circling back to the fact she was in the doorway at all, like the threshold was a crime scene. The older nurse she followed didn't get touched because she didn't show up in the report as the problem. The system pointed at the new badge, so they punished the new badge. 2 days after that, a charge nurse from her unit stormed down to my counter and slapped her palms on it hard enough to rattle the badge reels. She demanded to know why a brand new hire could open a restricted room. I played dumb, did the whole I just follow requests routine, and she stared at me like she wanted to climb over the counter. She said they were going to ruin that girl's career over a door that shouldn't have opened. I felt this urge to snap back, to tell her her righteous coworker loved ruining people, but I swallowed it because I couldn't afford attention. I just fixed a couple unrelated access issues for her unit and acted helpful until she left. They put the nurse on leave, then cut her loose. Fussed, quiet, like wiping a spill before visitors see it. A week later, she had to come down to turn her badge. She stood in front of me without scrubs this time, wearing a hoodie like she'd slept in it. She held the badge out to me with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. She didn't make a speech. She didn't curse me out. She just watched my hands. I took it, scanned it, and deactivated it while she looked on like she was watching a door close for the last time. When the system confirmed it was disabled, she flinched like the computer had hit her. Then she walked out. After she left, I went to the bathroom and puked bile into the sink and told myself it was stress, not guilt. A month later, I heard her landlord posted an eviction notice. A nurse from her floor said it like gossip, like the punchline to a sad joke, and nobody asked what the notice looked like because nobody wants to picture it. She started picking up shifts at a sketchy clinic across town, the kind of place that hires desperate people because desperate people don't argue. It wasn't even hard to find out. Her name floated through the same healthcare grapevine that pretends to care about privacy. People acted sympathetic while they repeated the story like it was entertainment. I saw her once outside a bus stop after my shift. I almost kept walking. I didn't because my feet stopped on their own. She looked thinner, like the job cut took muscle with it. Her eyes were flat, not crying, not angry, just turned off. She clutched a folder to her chest, like paperwork could fight reality. For a second, she looked up, and I thought she recognized me, and my heart kicked hard enough to hurt. She didn't say anything. She just looked past me like the world had taught her that faces don't matter. After that, I started jumping at every audit email, every security guy who leaned on my counter too long, every time my supervisor asked me to double-check an access request. I started logging out of the system obsessively, wiping my desk, keeping my hands visible like behavior could erase a choice. I told myself I'd stop messing with access. Then the next person came in with a smile and a thank you, and I felt the control sitting under my fingertips again. The office makes you feel invisible and powerful at the same time, and that mix is poison. I still work in that badge office. I still hand out access like candy. People thank me for keeping everyone safe. I nod like I'm not the guy who turned a door into a weapon. I worked as a mobile locksmith. I got fixated on a woman who called twice in 1 month, and my plan was to accidentally schedule my route near her building so I could watch her patterns without ever knocking again. My role gave me addresses and timestamps. My motive was hunger disguised as curiosity, and the logistics were just my work tablet and patience. First call was her deadbolt. She said it caught when she turned it. I drove over, parked like always, grabbed my bag, and walked in like I belonged there. She didn't smile. She stood back, watched my hands, watched the door like it might bite. I swapped the worn cylinder, tightened the screws, tested it 3 times. Smooth. Done. She paid, shut the door, and I went back to my van feeling weirdly keyed up like I'd done more than a lock. Second call hit 2 weeks later. Mailbox key snapped. Same name, same unit in my tablet. I told myself it was routine. It was. I cut a new key at the mail wall, handed it over, and she left without small talk. That should have been the end. Instead, I kept the job history open after I left. I stared at the address like it was a photo. I caught myself doing it and still didn't close it. That's when I realized how easy my job made things. The app didn't just give me work. It gave me a trail. Who, where, when, notes, gate code sometimes, which side doors stuck, which cameras were dead. It was supposed to keep me efficient. It made me dangerous. I didn't start with her. I started with the building. I learned when the lobby door jammed, when the manager got lazy, when packages piled up. I parked across the street under the excuse of waiting for dispatch and watched her come and go like she was a show. I watched the flow like it was traffic patterns. Morning exits, evening returns. The way residents held the door for strangers without looking. The way delivery guys dumped boxes and left the inner door propped. The way the lobby camera blinked, but nobody acted like it mattered. I started timing it without meaning to. 10 minutes, 20, 40. I'd tell myself I was just killing time between calls. I'd say it like a joke to myself. I wasn't laughing. I told myself I wasn't breaking in. I wasn't touching her. I was only looking. That lie held until I began feeling entitled, like her routines belonged to me because I'd mapped them. My head did this nasty little upgrade where curiosity became research. I started recognizing her shoes. I started noticing when she changed her route to avoid some guy in the lobby. I started knowing which nights she carried groceries and which nights she carried nothing and looked tired. I'd see her swipe in, and I'd lean forward like I was watching a game. I started wanting her to look up at my van, even though I stayed across the street like a coward. Work didn't slow down. It never does. Lockouts, busted ignitions, re-keys, the same stupid human panic on repeat. I should have been too busy to sit there, but I'd shuffle jobs in my head. I'd accept a call on the east side, finish it fast, then need a minute before the next one. I'd take the long way and end up near her building like it was an accident. The app tracked my route, but nobody stared at it hard unless something looked off. It started looking off. My dispatcher texted me one afternoon asking why I kept idling in one zone. Not her zone, just a zone. I felt heat rise in my face like she'd accused me of stealing. I told her the tablet dropped signal. I told her traffic was trash. I told her to stop riding my ass. I regretted it as soon as I sent it, then doubled down because shame makes me mean. She called me, and I didn't answer. I sat there watching the building while my phone buzzed, feeling like the victim in my own bullshit. That's what I mean by hunger. It wasn't love. It wasn't even about sex at first. It was about control. I wanted a piece of her life that she didn't give me. I wanted to take it without stepping close enough to get slapped. Then one night, she came home with a guy. My stomach tightened and my brain went nasty. I sat in my van and whispered insults at the windshield like it could hear me. I waited for them to separate. I waited too long. He wasn't special, just some dude in a dark jacket holding a takeout bag. They walked fast, like they'd done it 100 times. She bumped his shoulder, he laughed, and they went inside together. I gripped the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. I felt this stupid surge of ownership like she'd betrayed me, which is insane because she didn't even know I existed outside 2 service calls. I told myself to leave. I didn't. I watched the lobby glass, waiting for the elevator to move behind that frosted panel. I opened my work tablet and pulled up her old ticket like it was proof of something. I stared at her name and unit number and felt my heart thump like I was doing something intimate. That's when I finally got scared of myself. Not morally, like, oh no, I'm a bad person. Scared like I'd stepped onto ice that could crack. I drove off hard, too fast, and almost clipped a parked car at the corner. I slammed the brakes, sat there breathing through my teeth, and told myself I was done. I said out loud, I'm in it for about 10 minutes. I slept like shit. I woke up checking my phone like I was expecting a message from her, which was another level of stupid because she didn't have a reason to message me. I kept seeing her in my head at that lobby door with the guy beside her, and it turned my stomach. I wasn't jealous like a boyfriend. I was jealous like a thief watching someone lock their own safe. Next morning, my dispatcher texted me a new job with no details, just an address. Same building, same unit number. My hands went cold because it wasn't her calling. It was the building manager. That's what hit me first, not her name. The manager's name, because that guy didn't call outside vendors unless he had to, and he didn't call me unless he had a reason. My brain started racing through explanations that didn't fit. Lock change after a breakup. Eviction. Emergency rekey. Someone complained. Someone saw something. I tried to tell myself it was random. It didn't feel random. I drove over like I was heading to court. Every red light felt like a delay before punishment. I parked closer than usual, which was dumb, but my hands shook and I wanted the whole thing done. I walked into the lobby and felt watched even when nobody was looking. I caught myself glancing at the camera dome, then hated myself for it. I took the elevator up. The doors opened, and I saw her door down the hall. I saw the paper before I even got close. Big rectangle of white, folded, taped flat. I arrived and found a folded sheet taped to her door, sealed under clear packing tape. A copy of my business card was taped on top of it. My name, my number, my logo, like an accusation. It looked clean, centered, like she'd measured it. The tape edges were pressed down hard. No bubbles, no sloppy corners. Whoever did it wanted it to survive weather, fingers time. My throat tightened. I stood there with my tool bag hanging off my shoulder and suddenly felt like my uniform was a costume that didn't work anymore. I didn't peel the paper. I didn't need to. I felt my own pulse hammer because she'd done something I hadn't considered. She turned the spotlight back on me without touching me at all. I stared at my card on her door, and my brain played back every time I'd sat across the street like a roach in daylight. Every time I pretended to text while watching her. Every time I told myself, I'm not hurting anyone. Now my name was literally taped to her home like evidence. I heard a door open somewhere down the hall, and my body reacted like I'd been caught with my hand in a pocket. I stepped back, then forward, then froze again. I thought about knocking on the manager's door to ask what the hell this was, but I couldn't make my legs do it. I thought about ripping the paper down, but that felt like stepping into her space for real. I thought about taking a photo to document it, then realized how insane that sounded. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Dispatcher again. I didn't answer. If I answered, my voice would give me away. I'd sound guilty even if I lied. I turned and walked back to the elevator like I belonged there. The hallway felt longer on the way out. The camera dome at the end of the corridor stared down like it finally decided to matter. My skin crawled. I imagined footage of me showing up, stopping at her door, staring at my own card like some sick fan, then backing away. I imagined the manager watching it. I imagined police watching it. I imagined her watching it and smiling without smiling. I got outside and the air felt sharp in my lungs. I climbed in my van, shut the door, and sat there gripping the wheel like it was keeping me from falling apart. I wanted to rage. I wanted to cry. I wanted to pretend I was misunderstood. Mostly I wanted to rewind and not be that guy who thinks he can own someone just because he has their address in a system. I drove off, circled the block, and saw her across the street at a cafe window, staring right at my van. No fear face, no confusión, just a calm, flat look like she'd been waiting to see if I'd run. I was a kindergarten assistant in an aftercare program. I hated how the parents treated us like disposable babysitters, and my plan was to keep my head down, do checklists, and swallow the violent images that kept flashing in my brain whenever a kid screamed. My role put me in loud rooms with tiny bodies. My motive was survival and control, and the logistics were routine, snack, crafts, pickup line. It's not a cute job. It's fluorescent lights, sticky tables, and noise that drills straight into your skull. Kids crash into you like your furniture. Somebody's always crying, somebody's always lying, somebody's always trying to run. You count heads every 2 minutes. You check allergy lists like they're holy. You wipe hands, wipe noses, wipe crayons off walls, and then a parent walks in and talks to you like you're a coat rack. They don't ask how your day is. They ask why their kid's hair is messy and why their hoodie smells like marker and why we let their child get upset. Like I control their whole life for 3 hours. The thoughts didn't arrive like ideas. They arrived like scenes already shot. A kid throws a toy and my brain shows me the same toy smashing teeth. A kid bites my wrist and my brain shows me biting back until skin tears. I'd stand there holding a glue stick while my head played a movie where I did unforgivable shit and nobody could stop me. It wasn't even always rage. Sometimes it was blank, like my brain was just testing footage. I'd be opening a fruit cup and get a clean image of my hands doing something horrible, and it would hit so fast my stomach would drop like I'd missed a step. Then the room would keep moving and I'd keep moving with it, because if you freeze, you lose control. I never acted. I kept the smile. I washed hands. I tied shoes. I said gentle hands like a robot. Then I'd go to the supply closet and press my fingernails into my palm until the urge blurred out. The closet was narrow. Mop, paper towels, bins of chewed markers, a stack of little chairs. I'd wedge myself in, lock the door with my shoulder, and squeeze the shelf so hard my wrists ached. I learned to keep my hands busy on purpose. If my hands were full, clipboard, wipes, snack bin, my head had less room to grab the wheel. The place ran on policies and paperwork, incident sheets, sign-out forms, training videos about appropriate touch and protecting yourself from allegations. Those trainings were supposed to keep kids safe, but they also felt like someone was feeding my worst part instructions. Don't be alone with a child, except you will be, because staffing is always short. Don't restrain, except a runner can hit the parking lot in 3 seconds. Redirect with an open hand. Avoid leaving marks. Like I can negotiate with physics. Parents could smell stress. Some of them came in already loaded for a fight. One dad once snapped that I let his son cry too long and tried to corner me by the cubbies. I told him his son cried because he didn't get first pick of the iPad, and we don't do that. He leaned in like he wanted to intimidate me. I didn't back up. Inside my skull, the movie started, me slamming his car door on his hand again and again until he stopped talking. Out loud, I just repeated policy and handed him the backpack. That's what I mean about control. Control wasn't kindness. Control was me keeping the lid on. The day it popped off was stupid. Door buzzer rang, a parent came early, and a kid saw a gap and bolted. Runner kid. Fast. Straight for the exit like it was a game. I moved without thinking. I grabbed the back of his hoodie and yanked him back from the threshold. Not violent. Not even anger. Pure reflex. He spun, screamed like I'd stabbed him, and flailed. The fabric tightened for a second, and his sleeve bunched. His skin went pink where it pressed. I saw it immediately, and my stomach dropped because I knew what pink turns into in a parent's imagination. I wrote it up anyway. Time, behavior, response. Facts. The same boring armor. At pickup, his mom saw the faint red mark, and her face changed like a switch flipped. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't listen. She grabbed his arm and twisted it out toward the room like she was showing off a bruise. What the fuck is this? The kid caught the vibe and started wailing, pointing at me, because he knew her anger meant he wouldn't get in trouble for running. I kept my voice calm and flat. He ran for the door. I stopped him. I documented it. She cut me off and said it loud enough for other parents to turn their heads. So you grabbed him hard. You left a mark. That's abuse. My face stayed neutral, while my brain lit up with 100 ways to prove her wrong by becoming exactly what she imagined. It hit so clean I almost laughed. In my head, I saw myself stepping forward, taking her wrist, twisting until she yelped, making her understand what too hard actually is. I saw myself picking up the nearest toy and doing the thing my brain always shows me. I saw her eyes shift from righteous to scared. My body stayed calm, and that scared me more than anything because calm meant readiness. I didn't move. I locked my hands behind my back like I was a fucking inmate. I repeated the facts. I pointed at the clipboard with the incident sheet. She laughed, sharp, and said I was covering my ass. My coworker tried to jump in with a soft voice, trying to smooth it, and the mom snapped at her too, telling her not to defend me. The room went tight. Kids got quiet in that animal way they do when adults turn ugly. Then the director rushed in and did the corporate face, apologizing without admitting anything, and asked the mom to step into the office. They left me standing there with 20 kids and a line of parents looking at me like I'd done something dirty. My coworker muttered, "Jesus," under her breath, and I snapped that she could have watched the damn door if she wanted to help. She shot me a look like I'd just proved the mom right. I could feel my temper rising, hot and clean, and I hated it because it felt good to have something sharp to hold on to. I went straight back to the checklist because if I stopped moving, the clips would swallow me. Snack, wash hands, crafts, clean up, line up, count heads, scan the door, repeat. After close, the director called me into the office. Door shut. No yelling, just that HR tone that makes your stomach drop. She said the parent escalated it and might file a report. She asked if I was overwhelmed. She asked if I understood appropriate physical guidance. She asked if there had been any other complaints. I kept my voice steady and walked through it again. Runner, reflex, hoodie, documented. She nodded like she believed me, then slid the incident sheet back and said, "In the future, try to redirect without pulling fabric. Like I can catch a bolt of lightning with manners." On the way out, my co-worker started in again, half joking, half gossiping about how the mom was crazy and how I'd probably be fine. I told her to shut up. She acted offended like I'd insulted her family. She said I was being intense. I wanted to scream at her that I was intense because I spend 8 hours a day holding my own brain down with both hands. But I didn't. I walked away before my mouth could do something my face couldn't fix. I went home and scrubbed my hands until my knuckles cracked. I washed like I could rinse off accusations, like I could rinse off the images. The mom's voice kept looping, abuse, abuse, and it laid over every other clip in my head like a soundtrack. I'd see the kids' sleeve bunching. I'd see the phone camera. I'd see a child's mouth open in a scream, and then my brain would cut to the version where the scream stops and everything goes quiet. My stomach turned and my jaw locked, and I kept washing anyway, because at least washing is an action and not a thought. I looked at myself in the mirror and practiced the same calm expression I use at work, the one that convinces people I'm safe. Smooth face, soft eyes, small smile. I watched it click into place like a switch. It worked. That made me feel worse, because if I can fool a furious parent and a director in a room full of kids, I can fool anyone. I can keep doing the job while my head plays those movies and nobody will know. Tomorrow I'll unlock the classroom and pass out crayons like normal. That's the horror part nobody wants to admit. A person can be full of violent rot and still follow every rule. Still get thanked, still be trusted with your kid because the mask doesn't slip.